So it is the final PFL event here in 2022, and of course it is the championship night in New York City this Friday night from the Hulu Theater in Madison Square Garden. Every single championship is on the line, so 6 title fights, $6 million on the line as well for PFL. It is a pay-per-view that they are charging $50 for, and I'm not going to talk about that price. We're just going to go on with the card and actually talk about the fights. But it is the final PFL show here of 2022 before they go to DAZN next year with, I believe, a PFL Europe I think they're going for, and then of course PFL in America as well. And folks, before we get into the predictions, make sure that subscribe button down below for some more MMA here in the channel. We break down, predict PFL shows, Bellator events, and UFC events as well. So our first fight is Baggio Ali Walsh taking on his amateur opponent here in Tom Graesser. Again, this is an amateur fight at lightweight. I mean, you know why PFL put this on the card. I mean, Baggio Ali Walsh is the grandson of Muhammad Ali, and this is his first big fight under the bright lights, I guess. He's 1-1 as an amateur so far, coming off his last fight over Bradley Seaver. He won by KO in the first round, and his first fight he lost by submission earlier in 2022 as well. So it's his third fight. Again, this is an amateur fight, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. I mean, I don't know anything about Ali Walsh's opponent here in Tom Graesser. He's never had a fight, at least on Tapology. There's no fights displayed for him. I mean, Baggio Ali Walsh should win. I'm going to say he's going to win by first round knockout. Again, I wouldn't take this one to the bank. I don't even think you can bet on this fight. Obviously, you shouldn't be able to. It's an amateur fight. I think Ali Walsh is going to win by first round knockout. Again, who knows? He's fighting a guy who has zero experience, so I think Ali Walsh is going to win to kick off the card. And Dakota Ditcheva is one of these fighters that the PFL's got. She's 24 years old, fighting out of Manchester. I mean, she's one of one of their most hyped up prospects that they have, really. Her last fight, beating her opponent in 58 seconds on the last PFL card. It was a big knee to the body that put down her opponent and won the fight that way. Ditcheva's undefeated. She's 6-0. A lot of finishes out of her in her pro career. Again, 5 knockout finishes, 1 by decision. That was in her fight at UAE Warriors 28. Again, earlier in 2022 as well. But Ditcheva has been dominant. Her stand-up game is really solid. And there's a reason, again, she is undefeated. There's a reason she is 6-0. Her opponent's 2-0 coming into this fight. I mean, she fought once in WLF Wars back in 2019 in China, and then she won her last fight 5 months ago in Spartacus MMA 8 by rear naked choke in the first round. As long as Ditcheva keeps this fight standing, she's going to have her way, and that's what I think is going to happen. I got Dakota Ditcheva, just one-way traffic in this fight. It's, again, similar to, I'm way more confident in this fight than I am the Ali Walsh fight. Dakota Ditcheva is going to be one of the PFL's big stars next year. We'll see if she gets put in a season format for PFL Europe. At least that's what I'm thinking they're going to do. So we'll see if, she gets that spot in the flyweight division next year, but Dakota Ditcheva runs right through her opponent here. I got Ditcheva to win this one by first round TKO. All right, so Magomedkerimov is not fighting for a PFL championship this season. Obviously, he was supposed to fight Zeffirino earlier in the PFL season. Obviously, that fight never happened because Magomedkerimov cannot get to the United States. And instead, he just didn't get to fight in the PFL's third episode of the season, or third event. And then he went on in the 6th event of the season to beat Delano Taylor. He finished him in the second round by TKO. Now, Delano Taylor is fighting for a world championship later tonight. Obviously, Magomedkerimov only had 5 points because of that Delano Taylor win, and Delano Taylor got in the playoffs because of his decision win beforehand, but then he didn't get negative points like Magomedkerimov got. I think that's how that went. And then, yeah, Delano Taylor got in, and Magomedkerimov didn't. Anyways, we'll talk about Delano Taylor versus Sadibou Boussy later, but Magomedkerimov gets Graesser and Tibau here. He's going to run right through Graesser and Tibau. This won't be a competitive fight. I really think it's just going to be 3 rounds of domination for Magomedkerimov. Tibau's only fought once this year. He lost to Jaral Al-Sawali. He lost by split decision. It was a closer fight than I anticipated. I still thought Al-Sawali was going to win, but I was surprised Tibau made it all 3 rounds with him. But I mean, really, this is a 39-year-old Graesser and Tibau. It's like a plus 300 dog taking on Magomedkerimov, who is 32, and honestly, this guy will still be the favorite next year, I think, in the welterweight division for PFL. When you look at this division, again, you got Delano Taylor and Sadibou Boussy, which, let's be honest, is kind of like the weakest 170 final you can get, because Magomedkerimov's a guy who beat Sadibou Boussy last year, to get his way into the playoffs, in the playoffs to beat Sadibou Boussy, and he's a minus 1,000 favorite to do so. So it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's obvious that Magomedkerimov's better than the guys in the final, but if it wasn't for the Ray Cooper loss, Magomedkerimov would be the back-to-back PFL champion going into this fight, or going into the season. Of course, things didn't go his way, but we're going to see a new champion at 170, but I do think Magomedkerimov is going to end his 2022 with a victory. I think it's just going to be one-way traffic against him, or against Graesser and Tibau, and Magomedkerimov is going to win again by unanimous decision. Next up, we've got Natan Schulte taking on Jeremy Stephens. I think Natan Schulte wins. I mean, Stephens' run so far in PFL has been interesting. He comes in, he loses to Clay Collard in a really good fight in the first fight of the 2022 season. Then after that, Miles Price you know, Stevens wins by split decision, but Myles Price, probably the worst guy in this PFL 155 division. It was a fight that Jeremy Stevens, a minus 720 favorite in. He wins it barely, and now they give him to Schulte. And let's not forget Jeremy Stevens, the big losing streak he was on before that win over Price. I mean, before the Myles Price win, his last win was against a guy who's actually going to be fighting for the UFC Interim Championship next in Josh Emmett. That was all the way back in 2018. He lost to Jose Aldo, lost to Souza, beat Magomedkerimov, then no contest against Yair Rodriguez, ended up losing to Yair Rodriguez, lost to Calvin Kattar, lost to Mateus Gamrot, and then of course lost to Clay Collard as well. This is a tough fight, though. Schulte's good. I mean, Schulte, he went 1-1 in the regular season, beating Marcin Held and losing it to eventual title challenger in Olivier Aubin-Mercier in the first episode of the PFL season. But really, I think Schulte should be able to have his way with Jeremy Stevens in this fight. I mean, I think obviously it's going to be through the wrestling and through the ground game. I don't think Jeremy Stevens is going to be able to get back up. I think Stevens is going to try to make it a brawl. I'm going to try to get into Schulte's face and trying to make Schulte, of course, you know, just go back and forth with them. But I don't think Schulte's going to be willing to engage in that. Obviously, the former PFL champ of 2019. Schulte should be able to weather the storm early by Stevens, and unless Stevens can make this one dirty early, I think Schulte's going to be able to take him down, and Schulte's going to be able to hold him down. So I think Schulte, again, it's just going to be pure domination. I got 30-27. When you just look at this fight, Schulte's a minus 390 favorite for a reason. He is the much better all-around fighter, an MMA fighter. Schulte is better because of his grappling, so going to take Schulte to beat Jeremy Stevens by unanimous decision. So it's the battle of the Moraeses. We've got Moraes versus Marlon Moraes. It is a rematch of their fight way back when in World Series of Fighting. And now originally this was supposed to be Marlon Moraes taking on Shane Burgos. Thankfully that fight's not happening, even though I want to see Shane Burgos. It's just that, like, Marlon Moraes up a weight class against Shane Burgos, that was not going to go well. Burgos is probably going to knock him out in the first. And now we get the rematch of a fight that originally took place at World Series of Fighting at 22. It was for the Bantamweight Championship. Marlon Moraes was a minus 400 favorite. He won the fight by a naked choke. Again, back in 2015, the main event was Rusmar Pal Harris beating Jake Shields by Kimura, I believe. Was that the one where he held on way too long? I mean, he did it a lot. I think that was one of them. Anyways, Moraes is coming off a 4-fight losing streak. Obviously, he retired to end his UFC career, and really, you can make the case he should have been on a 6-fight losing streak, because you look at, really, ever since he beat Rafael Assunção, and ever since Marlon Moraes told, you know, the world and Brazil that he had diarrhea all week, bad, he has not fought well, and it sucks, but, like, really, he loses to Henry Cejudo. It's a fight that he gets real quick, and he wins the first round, and ever since Moraes, the second and the third, Cejudo starts to take over. Cejudo wins the Bantamweight Championship in Chicago, Illinois. After that, Moraes beats Jose Aldo in a fight that nobody thought he won. Still think Aldo won that fight. It's okay. Moraes then bounces back, takes on Corey Sandhagen. It was a fight where, again, if Moraes won, he probably would have fought Piotr Jan next instead of Aljamain Sterling, but still, Sandhagen got him with the spinning wheel kick, which of course had to push Aljo to the belt because Aljo already beat Sandhagen. After that, Moraes gets Rob Font, gets knocked down in the first round, then fights Merab Dvalishvili in a fight where he was winning until he wasn't. I mean, incredible first round, but Merab takes over in the second, and Dvalishvili wins that second round. Moraes almost had him. And then his fight after that, he got knocked down in the first round by Song Yadong. That was in March. He is now back late in the year as one of PFL's late signings, really, you know, like Aspen Laddie we're going to see later, like Shane Burgos, like Thiago Santos, like I think, honestly, we're going to see Ion Cutelaba here next year as well. A lot of these former UFC fighters. Moraes is back, and he's taking on Shimon Moraes. And for Shimon Moraes, in this season, he went 1-1, given his first win was against Boston Salmon, who's not the greatest, and then after that, he lost to Lance the Party Palmer. Palmer beat him by unanimous decision, and good for Palmer finally getting back on the winning ways. Moraes obviously had a really short stint in the UFC as well, losing to beat Magomedkerimov, beat Matt Sales, beat Julio Arce, and then lost 2 straight fights to Super Sodiq Yusuff and Andre Fili. But those are good fighters, man. And I think this is going to be an interesting fight because I think I don't think Marlon's that great in this point of his career. Obviously, we know he's signed up for next season no matter what, so even if he does lose, like, say, Omari Akhmedov did last year, you can obviously get the next season to rebuild and regroup. But I think Marlon's going to win. I think someone's going to crack the other's chin quickly. I think you're going to see a knockout in the first round here. I think Marlon's going to be that guy to find it against Shimon Moraes here. I don't think Moraes is the best striker by any stretch of the imagination. I think Marlon's hands are still crisp. I think it's just a matter of if his chin can hold up, Marlon should be able to win the fight, and I think it will. I think Marlon's going to blitz him early. I think Marlon Moraes is going to beat Shimon Moraes. I think he's going to get him by knockout in the first round. So our first of 6 title fights, and the first one being Omari Akhmedov versus Rob Wilkinson. We'll talk about both of these guys' paths to this championship fight, and obviously the prediction here. I mean, if you want to see it on the screen, there it is. I mean, obviously Wilkinson by first round knockout, but I'll explain to you how we got here. So Wilkinson, 3-0, of course, coming into this fight, beats Bruce Soto in his first fight by a knockout in the second round, then beats Victor Pesta in the first after that, and then beats Delon Monte. Now, I think if there's anything that you can question about Rob Wilkinson going into this PFL championship fight is that, okay, he hadn't really fought anybody. I mean, the guys he beat, like Bruce Soto, I mean, the guy went 0-2 in PFL. He's won a fight in RFA, which is not the original RFA. It's an RFA in the Czech Republic. Most notably last month, which is good for him, I guess. But Soto was not the best PFL guy. He beats Victor Pesta, who went 0-2, losing to Omari Akhmedov and Rob Wilkinson, both these guys in this championship fight. And then he beat Delon Monte, who Monte got into the playoffs because he knocked out Emiliano Sordi in the first round. Big upset win, but then when you really think about it, Monte's not the best guy, and Wilkinson came in there and knocked him out in the first round. So here's where we are with Rob Wilkinson. Obviously, former UFC guy, went 0-2 over there. His most notable fight was against Israel Adesanya, losing at UFC 221. But Wilkinson, if we're being honest with ourselves, he's looked good in his fights, but it's kind of been a weak strength of schedule going into this title fight, and now he's taking on Omari Akhmedov, who has been tested. But let's be honest with ourselves, Akhmedov's ride and path to the championship hasn't been all that much tougher. It's just that his fight in the playoffs is really tough against Josh Silveira. Silveira's a tough guy to beat. And he beats Josh Silveira, he gets him by unanimous decision. He takes Silveira's O in that fight. His other wins are against Theodoros Askelosis and Victor Pesta. Those two guys aren't very good, and we know that. But Akhmedov did look good in the Silveira fight. He stayed in there, and he really just out-battled Silveira in a 3-fight war against his ATT teammate. Obviously, you know Akhmedov's past. He fought in the UFC. He had that fight against Brad Tavares that got him cut from the promotion. He comes into the PFL this time last year, gets knocked out by Jordan Young, and then since then he's been 3-0 in the PFL. I think you're going to see. You are going to see these guys swing. I think Akhmedov has really found a lot of love with his hands a lot. Obviously, I think he will try to take down Wilkinson if the opportunity does present itself. But I don't know if Wilkinson's going to let him. I think Wilkinson's going to blitz him, and I'm going to keep the Wilkinson hype going. I think. Honestly, again, and I just talked about how, his strength of schedule wasn't the greatest going into this fight. It's not, but I think Wilkinson's really going to pressure Akhmedov here. He's going to force him to get into that type of fight with him. And I think you're going to see heavy leather exchanged early. You're going to see big power shots exchanged back and forth. And I'm going to take Rob Wilkinson to win the PFL Light Heavyweight Championship. I think he's going to get it done by first round knockout. I think Akhmedov's definitely got a chance, especially if he does go into the wrestling, and even if, Akhmedov can land a lot in Wilkinson as well, but we'll see. I think Wilkinson's going to be able to fight off the wrestling, and I think he's going to be able to keep it standing. I think really he's going to come into his own here as a big-time fighter for the PFL. He's going to knock out Omari Akhmedov in the first round. Give it to him again, a first-round knockout win for the new champ, Rob Wilkinson. So yeah, kind of crazy. Sadibou C gets his way into a welterweight championship fight, and it's against one of the alternates, Delano Taylor, who came in place of Magomedkerimov. He beat Joao Jefferino by unanimous decision, or Joao Jefferino, excuse me. And then he fights Magomedkerimov later on in the season. He loses, but he still goes to the playoffs. He beats Rory McDonald, who was just so checked out of the sport going into that fight. Of course, Rory is now retired Delano Taylor he was a replacement for Magomed Umlatov. Umlatov couldn't fight, so then Delano Taylor came and he stepped in as the replacement. That's how that went. And now Delano Taylor is taking on Sadibou C, who Sadibou C this season 3-0. He beats Nikolai Alasashin in his first fight by split decision. He beats Rory McDonald after that by unanimous decision. And then he beats Carlos Leal by unanimous decision after that. All 3 fights, Sadibou C has been the underdog. Now he gets Delano Taylor. He is finally the favorite. We'll see how this fight goes, because Taylor, again, 2-1 in the season. He hasn't looked great, but, it's just like it's kind of the same thing, honestly, with the Wilkinson and Akhmedov fight. These guys have not fought. Well, okay, no. Sadibou C's fought some good guys. Delano Taylor hasn't really been tested all that much yet, and once he has fought that upper, those upper guys in this weight class, I'm just talking about Magomedkerimov, he's lost. And now you get him in title fight against the Swedish Denzel Washington and Sadibou C. I'm taking Sadibou C to win. I think C's able to keep his distance. I think C's able to outstrike Delano Taylor. I don't think Taylor's got the power to necessarily put him away, because really Delano Taylor's only big knockout win as of late has been Rory McDonald, a guy who took a lot of damage going in that fight. He was coming off the loss to Sadibou C. I think C's going to win. I really think C's going to be able to keep his distance. He's big for the weight class. C is 6'3", 83-inch reach. Delano Taylor's 6'3" too, and he's got 77-inch reach. Taylor is 25. C is 10 years his elder, and I still, though, think that Sadibou C, who's been in the PFL for a very long time, this is his fourth season, I think C finally brings home that championship and the $1 million. I think C keeps his range, and I think he'll outstrike Delano Taylor from a distance. And, I think that's going to push his way towards a 5-round decision victory. I think Taylor will win rounds, but Sadibou C, I think, in the end, is going to win this fight 3-2. And new PFL welterweight champion, Sadibou C, finally gets it done. Oliver Aubin-Mercier is just levels ahead of all these guys. I think we said this pretty early on in the season, really. After Mercier beat Hushmanfio, I was like, all right, this guy's gonna win the season. That was the closest fight for me. I think Manfio is one of the top guys that they've got. Of course, the champion last year, who just lost to Aubin-Mercier in his second fight in the PFL season. And that was really a fight that decided who got in the playoffs and who didn't. It was kind of, unfortunate for both those guys because, or really for Manfio, is because, Anthony Pettis got in the playoffs because he submitted Miles Price in the first round. The guy wasn't looking good this year. He got 2 fights against Stevie Ray, lost both of them. And of course, Manfio is out in the playoffs, even though he beat Anthony Pettis last year just because he had a tougher strength schedule and he didn't get a finish in his first fight. But that's just how the PFL works. They reward guys who get finishes. But really, man, Aubin-Mercier is a guy who should not have been cut from the UFC, and now he's in the PFL. He's 5-0. He didn't get the shot, of course, last year to compete for the championship, but he still beat Marcin Held and Darrell Horcher in back-to-back fights. This season, he's beaten Natan Schulte, he's beat Hush Manfio, and in the playoffs, he beat Alex Martinez. This guy's, the real deal right now. Mercier's striking is getting better. His grappling has always been good. He is going to have his way with Stevie Ray in this fight. He's going to. Stevie Ray is not better than Olivier Aubin-Mercier on the ground. He's not better than him on the feet. It is going to be one-way traffic in this fight for Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Again, this guy should not have been cut from the UFC. He runs into Alexander Hernandez, Gilbert Burns, and Arman Sarukian, and he gets cut by the promotion. That's tough. Now, he's taking on a guy in Stevie Ray, of course, who this season is 1-2. I know MMA math doesn't work like this, but Stevie Ray's already lost to Alex Martinez. Aubin-Mercier beat Martinez in the playoffs, and Stevie Ray only has a win against one guy, or he's only got wins against one guy so far this season, and it's Anthony Pettis, who really is not the same Showtime that we once knew. Stevie Ray's beat Anthony Pettis twice. He got him with the modified twister in the first fight. In the second fight, he beat him by decision. Showtime's not that same guy anymore, but Olivier Aubin-Mercier is really in his prime right now. Stevie Ray is 32, Mercier is 33, but man, again, Olivier Aubin-Mercier is going to dominate this fight. I got OAM to become the new PFL lightweight champion in his first full season with the PFL. He's going to win this championship, and I really think Aubin-Mercier is going to be one of these guys in the PFL who's going to be able to, carry this torch for a very long time. But I think this, you might get a situation, honestly, I mean, not to the same extent, but really with like Kayla Harrison, where Aubin-Mercier is going year in and year out, winning this championship. I think he's going to be Stevie Ray. I don't think it's all that competitive. Olivier Aubin-Mercier wins his first world championship with the PFL, the lightweight gold going to OAM, and he'll get it done by unanimous decision. So, not a title fight, but the PFL puts on the main card. It's Aspen Ladd versus Julia Budd. Am I confident in this pick? I'm not. Am I confident Aspen Ladd's going to even get to fight night? I'm not. But now she's taken on Julia Budd. She got cut from the UFC, and immediately the PFL jumped all over this opportunity. They signed Ladd, and 2 months after her last UFC fight was scheduled against Sarah McMahon, where Ladd missed weight, she's now taken on the former Bellator champion Julia Budd. I think Aspen Ladd should be able to win. I think Julia Budd is, at that point of her career where she's kind of past her peak, she's past her prime. I think she was good in Bellator, but that's really when that was elite Julia Budd. And then she ran into Chris Cyborg, and yes, she won 2 fights in Bellator after that, but she barely got by Denia Silva. She beat Caitlin Young in her first fight in the PFL last year, and then this year she runs into Jenna Fabian, and she loses in a fight that Fabian misses weight for, but still Budd gets her points. And then Julia Budd was supposed to fight Kayla Harrison. She got hurt, never got to have that fight, and now she's taking on Aspen Ladd. Ladd should be able to win. I think Ladd should be able to get the takedown in this fight. I just think that, again, this is Julia Budd at 39 years old. She's not the Julia Budd that was once the Bellator champion. I think Ladd, even though she hasn't been impressive recently in the UFC, she's lost three of her last 4 fights, really since they were really pushing her. I mean, because she comes into the Drain Duranemy fight in Sacramento. She loses, gets knocked down in 13 seconds, beats Yana Kunitskaya after that, loses to Norma Dumont in the main event, and then loses to Raquel Pennington after that. But still, I think she's still better than Julia Budd. I think the wrestling's going to come in huge here. If Ladd has to go to it, I think she can get the takedown and really just, unload on her ground and pound, which she is most known for, really. And then on the feet, I think Ladd's able to keep up with Budd, and I don't think Julia Budd's going to put down Aspen Ladd. So I think it's just going to be kind of a competitive fight back and forth that Aspen Ladd will eventually carry out and win. So I'm going to take Aspen Ladd in her first PFL fight to beat Julia Budd. I think she gets it done by unanimous decision. Am I again, they're going to do Aspen Ladd and Kayla Harrison next year. That's probably the fight that they're setting up for, really, for the finals and for the championship fight next year, when I'm assuming Bellator or PFL is going to be going to that 145-pound division next year. But yeah, give me Aspen Ladd to beat Julia Budd. She'll get it done by unanimous decision. So for the heavyweight championships, Ante Delija taking on Mateusz Scheffel. Kind of crazy Mateusz Scheffel's in this spot, really is, because I didn't think he was going to get here. I mean, this is a rematch of earlier on in the season where Ante Delija knocked out Matus Scheffel in the second round. Since then, Scheffel pulled off the upset of the century, beating Bruno Capelloza some way, somehow by unanimous decision. Then he got the chance against Juan Adams, who was a replacement fighter for Denis Goltsov. But Scheffel beats Juan Adams in the third round. Again, this was Adams coming in on short notice. And now Scheffel's taking on Ante Delija here in this championship fight. We've already seen this fight. We've already seen it. I don't think the second fight really changes anything. I mean, Delija is back in the PFL championship for the second year in a row. Obviously, last year he lost twice to Bruno Capelloza. And I feel like this is the same kind of situation this year. I think Delija is going to beat Matus Scheffel twice. I mean, he picked up a huge win over Renan Ferreira in his last fight, beating him by TKO in the first round. Again, like, Delija beat Shelton Graves, and again, who is Shelton Graves? He's 37 years old. No one really knows who he is. He beat him, though. And then he beat Matus Scheffel earlier on in the season as well. I'm not saying Delija had the hardest path to this fight, but, like, come on. Matus Scheffel beat Bruno Capelloza, which is an incredible victory, but then he beat Juan Adams. I still don't think Scheffel's all that great. I think Delija is going to run right through him, just like he did in the first fight. Scheffel had his shot with the UFC in the Contender Series. He lost to Akhmedov Murzakanov. He lost by first round TKO. And now he's going to take on Ante Delija, and Delija, I think, is just going to mop the floor with him, really. I think it's going to be quick. I don't think this one's going to last long. It's going to be Delija catching him early, putting him down, and Ante Delija is going to win the PFL championship, something he fell short of last year, but I think finally he's going to get it. Again, to me, it's just kind of weird. Yeah, Matus Scheffel's in a championship fight, but there you have it. Ante Delija is going to run right through him. Delija is going to get the belt. He's going to catch him with something early. He's going to put him down. He's going to win the fight. So Ante Delija wins the heavyweight championship by first round knockout over Matus Scheffel. And probably the fight I'm most interested in for this Friday, the featherweight championship between Brendan Loughnane and Bubba Jenkins. Such an intriguing fight because, I mean, I think a lot of people wrote off Brendan Loughnane after his first two fights really in the PFL season this year. The Yoji Kudo fight isn't the greatest. I can make the case he loses, but he gets the win by technical decision. And then he beats Usyk after that, a fighter who I believe was coming off a couple losses. He barely beats him by unanimous decision and not that great of a performance, but Loughnane still finds his way to the playoffs. He gets Chris Wade, and he beats him by unanimous decision, and by far Loughnane's best fight yet. And Chris Wade, going into that fight, talked about, hey, you know, they're making him fight in Loughnane's hometown, and they did, and Loughnane got obviously that boost going into that. Loughnane won the fight by unanimous decision, but now Loughnane has to come back to the States to take on the former Arizona State wrestler in Bubba Jenkins. And Bubba Jenkins is no longer, and they said this in his interview after he won his last fight against Yoji Kudo, but really, Bubba Jenkins isn't just the wrestler anymore. This guy has got a really good jiu-jitsu game now, as you saw with his win over Yoji Kudo, locking up their rear naked choke immediately in the first round, getting that first round finish. And his kickboxing is getting better as well. Jenkins is becoming really that, you know, well-rounded fighter now, but I really think his wrestling is going to come into play in this fight against Brendan Loughnane. I think Jenkins is going to be able to go to the well multiple times here with his wrestling. I think Bubba Jenkins is going to show early in this fight why he is the superior wrestler. And when you look at Bubba Jenkins and you look at the body of work that he has done so far in the PFL, he's had, 6 fights? 7 fights, he's lost 1 of them. It's to Chris Wade in the playoffs last year by unanimous decision. Other than that, he's racked up victories against Lance the Party Palmer, Bobby Moffitt. He's got a win over Kyle Bochniak. He beat Ekison in his second fight this year, and then he beat Yoji Kudo as well. Jenkins, the nickname suits him. He is a bad man in there, and I really think his kickboxing is getting to the point where it will be able to compete with Loughnane. It's really what Loughnane we will get going into this fight, because Loughnane, like Bubba Jenkins, has only lost 1 fight in the PFL. After beating Bill Algier on the Contender Series and not getting that contract in the UFC, he won twice in 2019. He beat Shane Moraes in 2021, beat Tyler Diamond, lost to Khabilev by split decision, but then bounced back this year, beat Kudo, beat Usyk, and beat Chris Wade. And now he gets Bubba Jenkins. But really, Loughnane, up until that Chris Wade fight, was so mediocre just in this 2022 season, but he still found his way to the title fight, and now he gets Bubba Jenkins. I'm taking Bubba Jenkins, though, to win this one by unanimous decision. I cannot bank on us getting the Brendan Loughnane that showed up against Chris Wade. I'm not banking on getting that guy that we did see in the Copper Box in London. And I think Bubba Jenkins is going to be able to go in there. I think he's going to be able to mix it up. I think he's going to show the striking. I think he's going to show the kickboxing. He's going to be able to cut off the cage like he did against Yoji Kudo. And I think he's going to be able to mix it up with the wrestling as well. And again, with Jenkins grappling ever progressing as his game moves on, I really think it's going to be tough on Loughnane to work back up to his feet. So I think Jenkins is going to be able to secure that takedown, hold him there and really just make it tough for Loughnane to get any of his offense off. So I'm going to be taking Bubba the Badman Jenkins to win his first PFL championship with a decision victory over Brendan Loughnane. I'm going to go 4 rounds to 1, 49-46 for Bubba Jenkins, running right through Brendan Loughnane on his way to $1 million and the PFL World Championship. So it is the third fight between Kayla Harrison and Larissa Pacheco. I mean, I think a lot of people know how this fight's going to go. At least I think a lot of people are going to pick this fight the same. I'll just get it out the way. I think Kayla Harrison's going to win. I think she'll get it done in the 3rd round by submission. I think it's going to be a tougher fight. Obviously, these two fought twice in 2019. Kayla Harrison won both those by decision. She was not able to get the finish, and they haven't fought since then. So 3 years later, Kayla Harrison, Larissa Pacheco, part 3. I think Kayla Harrison still wins. I still think, and I now think this time, she will be able to go out there and get the finish. But Larissa Pacheco has been really good since that Kayla Harrison lost. She hasn't lost since, right? I mean, she won twice in 2021. Didn't get to fight in the playoffs against Taylor Gordano because she missed weight, even though we were likely on our way to Pacheco Harrison part 3 in 2021. Didn't happen. This year, Larissa Pacheco knocked out Jean Magul Falzanova, that fighter who should not have been in there. She beat Jenna Fabian after that, and then she beat Olena Kolsinic after that. It's been 3 fights for Larissa Pacheco in basically 5 minutes combined. She's won every single fight by first round knockout, and she has been running through her opponents. But she hasn't been tested like she's going to get tested against Kayla Harrison. And sure, Kayla Harrison has not been tested this season, has not been tested in 2 years to the type of fighter Larissa Pacheco is. Pacheco's the obvious number 2 in this weight class. But unless she's able to land a bomb against Kayla Harrison, and unless Kayla Harrison somehow doesn't wrestle her and doesn't try to take her to the ground and just fights this fight stupidly, which she won't, but unless she does that, Larissa Pacheco is not going to win. It's just that simple. Kayla Harrison's going to go in there. She should be able to get the takedown. I think it will be tougher for her to get the takedown and tougher for her to set up her takedown, but eventually she's going to get it. Eventually she is going to put Larissa Pacheco on her back. And I think it will be tougher for Kayla Harrison to get the finish. I think, right? I mean, Pacheco is solid defensively off her back, so I think it's going to take a longer time for her to make a mistake and for Kayla Harrison to jump on that mistake and lock in the submission and end the fight. But still, though, it's going to take a miracle for Pacheco to win. Larissa Pacheco has got 3 minutes to win this fight in the beginning of the fight. If she can't knock out Kayla Harrison in the first round and sit her down early, Kayla Harrison's going to start a takeover. She's going to tire Larissa Pacheco. She's going to start to wear on Larissa Pacheco. She's going to take her down at will, and she's going to find, Larissa Pacheco is going to find herself in multiple spots where she's fighting off her back. And eventually Kayla Harrison's going to lock in the submission. Eventually she's going to win. So I'm taking Kayla Harrison to obviously win this fight by submission in the 3rd round. I think you probably see an arm bar out of her. I think you're going to see a triangle arm bar. No, actually triangle arm bar would be from the bottom, but still, I think you'll see an arm bar from full mount. Kayla Harrison switches to it real quick. She'll get it. Pacheco taps. Kayla Harrison remains the champion. I think you see something like that in the 3rd round. I think Pacheco's going to hit her with a couple big shots to start the first round to make you think, oh, crap, maybe Pacheco's got a shot. But, I mean, going into the 2nd and the 3rd, Kayla Harrison's going to start to take over. I still think she'll win the first round, obviously. I think the first round will end with Kayla Harrison on top after a takedown. And the 2nd and the 3rd, and eventually, again, in the 3rd round, Kayla Harrison's going to submit Larissa Pacheco, and she's going to retain her championship for the 3rd straight year. Kayla Harrison is still the PFL champ, or actually for the 4th straight year now, because 2018, 2019, 2021, and 2022, Kayla Harrison gets her 4th championship from the PFL, and with the PFL, submitting Larissa Pacheco in the 3rd round by submission before I think we get Kayla Harrison next year at 145 pounds, and in all likeliness, a championship fight at the end against Aspen Ladd. So, folks, thank y'all for watching this PFL championship predictions video. That will do it for the PFL, at least here in 2022. We'll be back in 2023 with the PFL's next season, of course, coming at you. So make sure to, stay tuned for that. Of course, Bellator and UFC sticking with the channel. We've got UFC next week with Kevin Holland and Wonderboy Thompson main eventing from Orlando, and then coming up soon with Bellator, we have got the championship fight, one of the biggest fights really in Bellator history, Raufein Stutz, Danny Sabatello. It's a huge one, so that's coming up in a couple weeks as well. So thanks again for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more, and Mamba forever.